The Dart Zone MAX Tomcat is quickly becoming many people's favorite blaster of 2022, and I'm starting to understand why. There's a lot to love about this blaster, but after a little bit of testing, I think there are a couple things, for me at least, that keep this from just becoming an S-tier blaster. Let's talk about those. Hello everyone, my name is Bearet, and sometimes I wear a beret. I have quite a few Dart Zone blasters that I have received from Dart Zone for the purposes of reviews. I have been sitting on them for some time because I've really wanted to test all of them to give you my honest feedback as to whether these blasters are worth your money, because quite a few of them are quite pricey. So that includes the Mark 1.2, the Mark 2.1, the Max Dictator, the Vulcanator, and of course today's subject, the Tomcat, which comes in this beautiful, beautiful box. It includes one Tomcat Ultimate Super Drum Dart Blaster, one detachable muzzle brake, one adjustable tactical stock, one eyewear gear, one super drum, 2 tactical sights, 50 max accurate half-length darts, and one stock rest. I guess that's technically true, but yes, the stock is 2 different pieces. So of course, starting with the fun stuff, you do in fact get eyewear included with the Tomcat. Any 14 plus blaster from Nerf or Dart Zone is including eyewear, which I think is the right thing to do. Now this is being sold separately for 10 United States dollars, which is quite pricey. It does have some rubber inserts for your nose. No, they don't go in your nose, but your nose can rest on them. See, it's beautiful, high quality stuff right there. And on both sides, you can see it says Dart Zone Max. So they're slightly specialized glasses, but they're nothing too fancy. I mean, they fit me just fine. It's better eyewear than nothing, though there's a lot of reflection, and with lights on right now, wow, it is an experience. Would these protect my eyes? Probably. Although, there's a little bit of text actually right here. What does that say? 2022 Primetime Toys. Made in China. Warning, this is not a protective device. Then what are you? But enough of the eyewear, let's talk about the Tomcat itself. Starting from the back, this stock is quite different than any other stock Dart Zone has released before. As described on the box, this piece on the top is removable, but it's also meant to be adjustable, so if you are resting your cheek on it, you can move it far back or far forward. This is an N-Strike style stock attachment point, and while that is great for attaching other stocks, when it comes to this one, it's a bit wobbly, because on the other side, when it comes to adjusting the length of it, that piece is pretty darn sturdy. I'm not usually one to have this in the fully extended position. I haven't been able to, collapse it on my shoulder, which is good, but you can see there's a little bit of flex there, right? Not ideal, and the flex is coming from this point. You really gotta pinch this piece to actually adjust it, yet taking off the stock itself is super, super simple. So I kind of wish that was a little tighter retention, but it's not the end of the world, it's just something to note. But what I should really start with is the overall look of this blaster. When people first saw that this is what the Tomcat looked like, I think there were some mixed opinions. I will say, I think this looks pretty darn sweet. And I like the aesthetic they went with the Tomcat. The overall paint scheme here is very simple, or should I say non-existent. It's just the plastic, a couple different colors. You've got the red, obviously, and you've got gray, and then you've got orange. Let me know if I missed a color there, because I don't think I did. And I do kind of like the blockiness of it. There's something very unique about that, and I don't know, for some people they don't like it. For me, I think it's totally fine. Even with the drum on this blaster, I think there's a cool aesthetic to that. Now the sights are also kind of different. Every Dart Zone blaster seems to come out with different sights, and as far as this one goes, it's not bad. I just been trying to figure out how to best use sights like this, because in the back, 4 little snake prongs, which I guess you can kind of align a dot to in the center. The only time you would actually use them is if you are fully leaning against the blaster, aiming down the sight with your cheek on that cheek rest. And personally, after my usage, I haven't used the blaster like that almost ever. So you can of course just take them off if you don't care about them, and you can put other sights on here if you want. You could take the stock off too, which will just make it fit into frame a little bit easier. As also described, the muzzle brake is removable. You could obviously put this on other Dart Zone style blasters that accept it, like the Nexus, like the Striker, like the Dictator. They all pretty much take the same kind of barrel here. But of course, as you can see, this one is very much meant to mesh with the Tomcat style. So putting this on another blaster might be kind of weird, but at the same time you could take other style ones, like this one is from the Dictator. Sure, if you like that aesthetic, great. Or you can just freaking leave it off. Or you could go ahead and put yourself a little worker barrel on there for some improved accuracy. So in its simplest form, this is the Tomcat. It's a pump action, spring powered blaster that is of course being fed using this drum, this cylinder, drum. I'm gonna use the phrase interchangeably, probably, don't sue me. I don't know which is correct. You can debate in the comment section down below. Now this drum is going to make or break the blaster for you. We'll talk about the other things that people have done later, but for what the Dart Zone Tomcat is offering initially, this thing is pretty darn interesting. This is a 50 round capacity half dart drum. Now you can load 2 into each slot, so it's double stacked, which means there are 25 slots times 2. As you can see by my quick removal, this drum is designed to be removable from the Tomcat. Now, would you want to do that on the field or just in between rounds? That's more up to you, but it does slap in pretty darn easily. You do have to make sure though that the front and the back, these pins are fully extended when you are gonna put it back in. Normally, it's not too much of an issue. You do also have to make sure you're primed back. Bye-bye. Because if you're just grabbing this cylinder really quickly and trying to reload it, there's a good chance that those tabs are not fully extended, meaning you do have to fiddle with them a little bit just to make sure that you're gonna slap into place. Also, you have to make sure that it's facing the correct way. But when it does go into place, you'll hear a pretty clear snap and you're ready to go. And likewise, you just pull it right out, just friction fit to release it. Now 50 rounds is quite the capacity, and if you're just playing for a round, running around for like 5 minutes, there's a good chance you won't even go through that many darts, which is great. That means you won't even have to think about reloading this, because reloading this is where the drum kind of starts to run into issues. On the plus side, these holes are absolutely perfect for rear loading, and even when it's on the blaster, not just attached like this, reloading the Tomcat in its bottom 25 slots is the best thing you can ever do. And it makes this blaster really, really easy to top off when you're running on the field, meaning that you can very easily take this blaster out, have a pocket full of darts, and just reload as you need to. Now the instructions would say that you are supposed to load the darts from the top. They do say you can reload from these holes in the back, but they also say that what you can do is reload from the top, where you just push the dart in like that, and then push it into place. Now that's all fine and good until you get to the top, because the bottom 25 are very, very easy to load, while the top are a bit more cumbersome. Now this does take inspiration from their previous drum-fed blaster, which was the Tomahawk, but that one was full-length darts, and you did have to bend those darts in order to make them fit. Not ideal, but you know, full-length darts, they'll come back, right? Well, this one, it wants you to bend half-length darts. And that's exactly what it says in the instructions. I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. They're saying you have to put it in like this and then like, what, push it through? That's one thing. Or push it in and then bend the dart and then bam. Ah, beautiful. I do want to keep these intact as much as possible when feeding it through this breech system on the Tomcat. It's the best way that these darts will actually be accurate. If they get stepped on later, that's their own thing. But I really don't want to be bending my darts prematurely. And half darts, well, when you're bending a half dart, that's the entire dart. So if you want to know the cumbersome loading technique that I've already used on my Tomcat, here you go. Here's one dart loaded and I need to put one on the top. But I'm not going to. I'm going to use my finger and push it up out of the way. Actually, I'll flip it over and it'll be easier. And then I'm going to shove this dart in underneath. Now, was that the fastest process out there, especially when loaded into the blaster? Absolutely not. But this is my channel, this is my life, this is my reloading technique, darn it. So no, the reloading on this blaster isn't terrible, but when the bottom 25 are so easy and then the top are like, maybe I don't really want to do that right now. And in Dart Zone's defense, when this cylinder is fully loaded up, those darts aren't going anywhere. They stay in place very nicely, and there's no springs that are pushing on them or pushing against other darts, so you can leave this fully loaded up and bring it out at your next game. They aren't deforming the darts when they're actually just sitting in here. So I think that is a plus side of the cylinder, of course. The balance of loading versus storage, I don't know, your opinions may vary. Slap it in there. So now we're fully loaded, and you can see in the primed back position, when you do pull back just a little bit, you do rotate through that cylinder. Likewise, if you do start shaking it a little bit, you can start to skip ahead. It doesn't go backwards, but it will, you know, very easily move forward, especially if the drum starts to get a little bit more empty. It's pretty easy to rotate back if needed. And we are talking about 50 rounds of capacity, so there's a good chance that you're still gonna have one dart next. So let's prime it forward, and let's give it a few test shots. You know what, maybe we're not gonna shoot it in here. This thing is quite loud, and that's not too surprising because it's offering some pretty serious performance. The Tomcat comes in with, you know, their included darts with some other similar darts from Dart Zone or Worker in the upper 160 FPS. Maybe 170s if you're using some of the bamboo darts that are a lot lighter, but typically you can expect 160 FPS from this blaster or up. Now that is some serious firepower, and you'll notice very quickly the prime is quite stiff on this blaster. I've handled quite a few Dart Zone blasters up to this point, and yes, some of them have stronger primes than others. The Tomcat is not messing around. It very clearly marks itself as a blaster meant for ages 14 and up. I am not the strongest man alive. This should shock you, I know. But I'm also not gonna consider myself super weak. I mean, I'm an adult. I can do a push-up, maybe even a pull-up. But this prime, I was not expecting it to be as strong as it is. In fact, when I first was testing this blaster, I hurt my arm a little bit because I chickened winged too much. I like flexed my arm in the wrong way and I was like, ooh, that did not feel good at all. So it did take me a little bit of time to sort of learn how to use this blaster without hurting myself. I'm simply saying that because I think it's worth noting. You might need to learn how to use a Tomcat blaster in a different way. It's not the biggest cylinder ever, but it does take quite a bit of real estate where your arm might typically go. If you just have a magazine going straight down, you're not gonna run into something like that. But with a Tomcat, there's a lot of force that you gotta prime back, and if you chicken wing too hard, you might find a way to uncomfortably prime this. And 50 rounds of capacity, you're probably gonna be wanting to fire this blaster quite a bit. It also has slam fire, which means if you're trying to prime this really fast, it's gonna start to grate on you. If you told me I had to use the Tomcat blaster all day, I'd be like, oh boy, hopefully I'm not gonna die. So what I have found is that keeping this stock on is the best for me. Priming this into my shoulder really does make a difference so I don't overextend. Even so, I have found many scenarios where I do need to prime the blaster kind of like towards the side because I'm hiding behind cover and I don't want to be all out in the open, or maybe, you know, firing it from a lower position. You might be super strong, you might think I'm the weakest man alive, and that's totally fine. If you haven't had that problem, great. But I've noticed it. And the weirdest thing too is that while I did find this pump grip to be relatively comfortable, my hand fits just fine on the grip and my hand fits just fine on the pump grip, I don't use the pump grip as advertised. I hold it like this. I hold my hand at the very top of the pump grip. And that's how I operate this blaster. Sorry if that came across as a rant, that wasn't my intention. It's just my first experience with this blaster wasn't very positive because of a weird priming, and then it just kind of hurt my arm and I was like, whoa, what did I do wrong? And then I learned kind of how to use this blaster and it got a lot better. Because when I started using this blaster, it was a lot of fun. And the accuracy wasn't half bad either. Slam fire can be a little bit janky, I will admit. Well, that was jank as heck. Perhaps the optimal way would be to actually use the shoulder stock and then, you know, slowly fire it. And when you do slowly fire it, you are going to get better performance, as in you're not going to skip rounds as frequently, because sometimes when using this blaster, you will skip rounds. And you'll notice that especially if you're on your last 25, if you've actually fired evenly, well, if you miss a round, then you're firing a blank and it's gonna be very loud and no dart is going to fire. This blaster has a lot of capacity, so the drum does make missing a shot a little more forgivable. It's still not ideal though, and I did run into some issues where I was firing this blaster and I realized I'd skipped some shots and I was like, oh, why isn't it rotating? It comes when you fire the blaster a little bit faster, and yes, you do want to make sure that the blaster does go all the way back when you prime it so that you do rotate that cylinder. I've also had a few times where it gets locked up in the front, like I fire the blaster and it's like kind of locked up here and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I pull the trigger a few times and then prime it back again and it works. I don't know what that's all about. If you've had a similar experience, let me know. Sometimes it would seem to do that when I like reload a cylinder and it's stuck in the backward position, and I don't really know what that's all about either. But with all my little gripes being said, I have to admit I've had a lot of fun using the Tomcat, even in some competitive practice. Again, not having to reload, hopefully during a round, means this thing's gonna keep me well supplied, because right now this blaster comes in at 70 United States dollars, which is quite pricey. But in thinking about other blasters that even Dart Zone has released up to this point, I suppose it's actually not too surprising. I mean, the Nexus costs 50 bucks, and if you use that as a baseline, this has more capacity, it's a higher performer, throw in some inflation, of course, there too. What if, perhaps, in a world where modders exist, what if we made this thing magazine fed, just for the heck of it? I mean, sure, the whole point of this cylinder is the, uniqueness of the Tomcat, but it's already been done. Bobo Innovation, you absolute mad lad, the same person who made the Lame Boy, which is right here on my wall. Bobo Innovation made a removable half-dart adapter for talons. Half-length magazines in the Tomcat, basically making this blaster function in a way it was not designed to do. And it's so easy to install and then remove. You can go back to using the cylinders. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. Hats off to you, metaphorically, beret tip to you. Also, if you're doing that, you're not gonna have the cylinder in the way. So if you're looking to have reloading as a magazine option, then I guess there's something for you if you like the silhouette and you like the power of the Tomcat as it is. But of course, if you just like cylinders, guess what? They're also going to be releasing some additional ones for the Tomcat from Dart Zone officially. Looks like they're going to be $20-ish, so that also might not be super desirable for some people, but I think that answers something that many were going to ask. Can I get more cylinders for this blaster? All in all, the Tomcat is pretty cool. And if you've already gotten yourself a Tomcat or are considering this blaster, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Subscribe for more Dart Zone cat blasters. I have no idea why they called it the Tomcat, but I guess we have no idea why they call any blaster what they do. And thank you again to Dart Zone for sending me this blaster. This one is a ton of fun to play with. And I will see you next time, well, with more cat blasters. Just kidding. There are no cat blasters.